What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Bench Mob. It's an absolute pleasure to have you guys here again on the channel. My name's Danko. As usual, I'm with my co-host Marcus. And today we're introducing a brand new segment to the channel. It's called Beyond the Box Score. It's our very own weekly recap show. Although it has been more than a week in the NBA, we are going to be doing this on a weekly basis and recapping, I guess, the key points, key takeaways in the NBA, I guess our biggest disappointments, and just any of the major talking points around the association. So it will be a regular segment week in, week out. We are a little bit late on this particular segment this week with prior commitments, but going forward, we are going to be on time with this, and I hope you guys do enjoy this new content because it's going to be fire, and we're excited to film it. Marcus, how you doing today?
I'm really well. Now, really excited to do this. We had like a little bit of a trial run the other day. Didn't really go to plan, but we're back at it, giving this a second crack. And as you mentioned, we want to make this a weekly thing. This episode, I guess the first one, it's a bit out of whack because we didn't really have this idea till, I guess, not right at the start of the season. So the episode has been pushed back. It's more than, I guess, a week. But with that being said, it's still, you get the gist. Like, it's the start of the NBA season, and the aim is to have a weekly show. But the first one, it's still going to be extremely, like, fun. But it is more than a week. But nevertheless, extremely excited and keen to get this first segment ready to go. And that is 5 key takeaways. So I'll let you begin the key takeaways, and then I'll kick mine off after yours.
Sounds good, bro. So the 5 key takeaways I took away from the start of the NBA season thus far is, with the OKC Thunder, Josh Giddey must play point guard, and SGA has to be more an off-ball player for the Thunder offense to be as effective as possible, because we saw in the early stages Josh Giddey looked a little bit lost out as an off-the-ball player. SGA looked really good, but I think you're more valuable having Josh Giddey with the ball in his hands, and that makes up for a lot more than what SGA can do on the ball than he can do off the ball. So I feel like that's the first key takeaway, and I think as it's progressed along, the offense looks a lot better now with that particular lineup combination with Josh Giddey as the point. Second one, the Milwaukee Bucks with Damon Giannis are experiencing growing pains. Obviously, we've seen him take a couple of shock losses in the early part of the season, and they look a bit tentative. I think not being used to having another superstar alongside them is maybe taking a bit of getting used to, but I think that'll eventually start to turn around for him. But at the moment, it kind of looks a little bit off there. But in hindsight, the Boston Celtics look scary. Like that starting five combination of Jason Tatum, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis, and Drew Holiday as well, looks absolutely scary. If one guy doesn't go off on any particular night, you have one of those other 4 guys that can get their own on any given night. And I think the way they've started the year, it's going to take a lot to beat them, I should say. So that's another key takeaway. Third one, the Wemby hype is legit, but Chet isn't too far behind. I mean, we saw the ups and downs with Wemby. When he first got into the league, in the summer league, people were immediately calling him a bust. He didn't look comfortable. But then as things went along, his debut didn't go to plan. But last night and even the game before that against the Phoenix Suns, to knock them off twice, a contending team, especially considering the San Antonio Spurs were in absolute no man's land last year. It's a great sign for them, and Wemby just looked absolutely dominant and unguardable yesterday, 38 and 10. So incredible. But Chet also putting up really great numbers, and he looks really comfortable out there. And this matchup and this battle over the years is going to be really exciting to watch. Who's the better player out of this, 7-foot class? And then the fourth takeaway, a healthy Zion Williamson is the key to the Pelicans' playoff run. So obviously we've seen them start the year at 4-1. It's an incredible start for the Pelicans, and a lot of that comes down to Zion being, out there and available night in, night out. He obviously rested the last game, but I think you need to do that, especially with a guy who hasn't played a lot of basketball over the last few seasons. But yeah, with him out there and, alongside Brandon Ingram when he will return, and CJ McCollum, when Trey Murphy returns, Herb Jones anchoring that defense, and then you still got contributions from Jonas Valanciunas and the bench. I think the Pelicans look really scary. And the last one, the Grizzlies are looking horrible without Ja Morant and the injuries that have decimated their roster. I mean, I can understand, they've still got really good players in their side. Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr. There are still legitimate star talents on that team, but for them to be 0-5 at the moment, and then I forgot to even add in Derrick Rose and Marcus Smart to that mix. So for them to be 0-5 with the roster that they do have, which isn't a terrible roster, I think really just shows how valuable Jar is to that franchise, and I guess they'll be really looking forward for him to come back after that 25-game suspension. So those are my 5 key takeaways, and there's a lot more to take away from the start of the season, but I thought those ones were really the ones that caught my eye the most.
Yeah, 100%. The Grizzlies one's really interesting. We were talking the other day about, should they almost tank this year with, obviously, Ja being out 25? Is that enough time for them to kind of make a playoff push? But, if they were to get a Buzelis with a Ja or a Ron Holland, that could certainly be extremely scary for the future. The 5 key takeaways that I had. The first one, Scoot Henderson is clearly a work in progress. The guy, he started off his NBA career not so great. And as a closeted Blazers fan, I really want to root for this guy. But, we've seen guys like Chauncey Billups do it before where they have resurrected their early NBA careers. But he looks really bad, really, really, really bad. He's averaging 8 points, 4.5 assists, 4 turnovers a game. Obviously, he really struggled in that first game against the Clippers. He had 1 point till the fourth quarter. The most he's kind of scored is 11. And for the amount of shot attempts, he isn't really cutting it. So, Scoot, I wish him the best in his rookie year, but he doesn't look like he's kicked off his NBA career with a bit of a burst, that's for sure. My second key takeaway, Cam Thomas has emerged as a number 1 option for the Brooklyn Nets. I feel like a lot of people, they had expectations on Mikal Bridges to be that guy to average 28 like he did in that second half of the season last year. Well, Cam, he's proven that he honestly could be a 25-plus point per game scorer. Like he said, when he gives him the ball in his hands, he hits the toughest contested shots. He can score at the rim whenever he wants to. He's proven that. He's shooting damn near 100% at the rim. It's honestly crazy. And then my third key takeaway, Tyrese Maxey has emerged as an NBA star. And with the loss of James Harden, I feel like it's only going to go up. He's averaging 30 plus. He's shown that he can be a co-star with Embiid. So that is certainly one to look out for. Fourth key takeaway, Brandon Miller thus far is the Hornets' best player. I really do think that. Don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he might be averaging the most points per game on that team off the bench efficiently, or at least for a rookie. Obviously, with LaMelo Ball struggling, I think Brandon Miller has been their best player. And then my fifth key takeaway, Jalen Duran is the closest thing to a young Dwight Howard that we've ever seen. The guy is an absolute freak. He went from averaging 9 points per game and 7 to 8 rebounds to he's averaging 15, 13 rebounds, 2 blocks, 4 assists. He looks really, really good out there. So that is my fifth takeaway.
Yeah, it's funny how you're going back to that Scoot and Brandon Miller debate that we had obviously 4 or 5 months ago on the channel when the draft was looming. And, we were heavily backing Brandon Miller to be that number 2 pick. And obviously, me, I rate him super highly. And it just shows that pick so far has been justified. Question marks about Michael Jordan, picking Brandon Miller at that slot. And, they were saying, oh, it's going to be another bad pick. But I guess it's good that the last pick that he actually had in his tenure as the Hornets owner, he's actually turned out quite well thus far. And I still have hopes for Scoot. I still think he can be a great NBA player, don't get me wrong. And I think it's just going to take him some time to get adjusted to the speed of it. He's been asked to obviously have the point guard duties on a young team, which is always a tough task, especially when you're in your first season. But I think he'll definitely be better. We saw LaMelo Ball in his first game had 0 points on his debut. So I think what he's turned into now, we can definitely see Scoot have that similar kind of ascension. But right now, yeah, you're right, it has been a bit of a struggle. So we'll just have to wait and see how things play out. But really liking the looks of Brandon Miller thus far.
Sir, I think that leads us on to our biggest surprise for both team and player for the season. I'll let you kick it off again, and then I'll go after you.
Follow suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the first player for me, which is the biggest surprise thus far in the NBA, and it's not really a surprise because we know what this guy's capable of, and we saw what he could do in the playoffs last year, and probably super unlucky not to be in the top 100 players. In fact, it was an absolute travesty that he wasn't in the top 100 players based off ESPN's rankings, and that man is Derek White. He's putting up all-star caliber numbers, especially if that team does end up winning, a significant amount of games. It could be a similar kind of thing where we see, the Golden State Warriors having a high amount of all-stars in this particular season. And although his numbers, you might argue, for a guard, it's not that great. Draymond Green was an all-star averaging like 8 points and 8 rebounds a game. So Ben Wallace, the same thing. I know they're big men, but Derek White, he's averaging about 15, 5 and 4 this season with 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks per game. Like, he's putting up really, really great numbers. And to be honest, he's almost the most important player on that team because he's like their glue guy. He's their energy guy. And I think alongside Drew Holiday, they complement each other so well in that backcourt. And it's pretty much a brick wall there trying to get through the painted area when those two are guarding you up close. But I think, it's not really a surprise, like I said, because we know what to expect from Derek White, but for how well he's fit in with that other 4 guys there on that roster, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis and Drew Holiday, who all love to obviously take shots. He's complemented them super well, and he's had a terrific start to the year. And not to mention, he's shooting like 58% from 3 and almost 60% from the field. So incredible start to the year, and like I said, not a super surprise, but at the same time, for how many other stars they do have on that team, he's played his role really, really well. So for that reason, I have him as my biggest surprise.
Love it. He's on that Jordan with that bald head. But, gotta love Derek White. I mean, he does this in like 24 minutes. He can do it in 22 minutes. He can start, play 36 minutes and dominate. He's so valuable because he can come off that bench and he can start. And he doesn't ask for anything, I guess, more than what the coach asks of him. Like, he's not trying to be that star guy on the team. He just plays his role, thrives in his role. And for that reason, he could end up being an all-star this season. Like, he's playing that well defensively, offensively. And like you said, he's that glue guy that I guess a championship team needs. So he could be the sole reason why the Boston Celtics end up NBA champions. But my biggest surprise for player, it's got to be Cam Thomas. I know I mentioned him before, but he has just been on an absolute tear ever since they said, we're giving you the green light, you got to start. He's just killed it. Like, of recent, he's slowed down a tiny bit. I think today, you mentioned before he had like 17, and then they ended up winning, which there's nothing, 17-17, like that's still very solid. But he's had like, before that, he had games where he had like 3 straight 30-point games. He had a close to 40-point game in that debut, the NBA, the first game of the season against the Cleveland Cavaliers.
NBA opening night,
Yeah, the opening night. And it kind of just like kicked off. Like, we didn't really expect Cam Thomas to just unleash like that. He kind of just came off the bench, played 7 minutes, scored 15 points, and then they kind of just let him run loose. And he ended up dominating. Like, he only played in that game where he did score 36. He played 25 minutes. So we know this guy can score in bunches. We know how talented of a scorer he is. Let's kind of just see if his off-the-court attitude can be resolved. And then if that's resolved, I think he can be like a really, really valuable scorer in this league for 5 to 10 odd years. Like, he's gifted. It's just figuring out, I guess, that off-court persona that he obviously does have.
Yeah, I think, they just got to let him loose. They just got to let him, play freely and play off instinct. Because I feel like as soon as you try to box a guy like this in, or, you try to put the shackles on him, it limits him to what he can really do. We saw last year, he had those 3 straight 40-point games, and then he went from that to averaging barely any minutes, and, he was averaging, very, very minimal amount of points. So, they just got to keep persisting with it. I think so far it's working out well. And, he's going to have some of those nights where he does have an off shooting night where he's not, shooting a high percentage or he takes a lot of shots. But I think you get the good and the bad with Cam Thomas. But when he's good, he's up there with the best scorers in this league. So, definitely so far a good start for Cam Thomas. And hopefully he can continue that on. We'll go on to the biggest disappointments now. And originally, I'm going to say that I did have LaMelo Ball as my biggest disappointment for the season. But I'm going to give him a hall pass because he did come off an injury and he has been injury riddled the last few seasons. So far to start the year, he was averaging on 30 minutes a game, 15.5 points on 30% from the field, 26% from three. About 5 boards, 8 assists, and 1.5 steals. So, he's still putting up good numbers, just really, really poor efficiency. And it's, he's just chucking up shots. And I think that's going to come with him getting used to, the speed of the game again. Missing a lot of time out in the court definitely doesn't help. So, I'll give him a pass initially, but he is still a pretty disappointing player to start the year off compared to what we know he's capable of. But for my biggest disappointment, I'm actually going to put a guy that we have a lot of expectations of and we know what he's capable of in the playoffs and when the lights shine the brightest. And that man is none other than Jimmy Buckets, Emo Jimmy. To start the year off, he's averaging 33 minutes a game, 16.5 points on 35% from the field, 25% from three, only 7.2 rebounds. I mean, that's decent numbers, but the assist numbers, they've sort of taken a hit. He's only averaging about 3.5 assists, which is something he's known for, being a playmaker from that small forward spot. I think he's the reason why the Heat have had those early struggles this season. He's not performing up to the levels that we know he's expected of him. And for me, that's pretty disappointing considering how efficient we know Jimmy Butler can be. For him to only be shooting 35% from the field and under 30% or 25% from three is quite embarrassing. So, he's got to pick it up, and I think he's the key. Like I said, if Tyler Hero's lifted his game, ever since those trade rumors, he's truly tried to prove that he, is a valuable piece in this Miami Heat team and a valuable player in the league. For that, or any team could utilize. Bam, obviously, he's been performing to a somewhat decent level, but Jimmy's the guy. If he can start lifting his game, you'll see how quickly the tables will turn for the Miami Heat going forward, and they'll start to shift the standings a little bit and not be right on the bottom of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I feel like with Jimmy, I don't know, the Heat are just in such a weird position since they didn't, after they didn't get Damian Lillard, it's you take a hold of Tyler Hero. Obviously, he's averaging close to 25 points per game, but not really too efficiently. And he's I guess, on that verge to be the main scorer on that team ahead of Jimmy. But then, I don't know, everybody's kind of getting better and the Heat are just maintaining. And it's just a weird spot to be in. But we know how quality of a player Jimmy Butler is. We know he can turn it around in the click of a finger and turn into something else out there. But for my biggest disappointment out of the Western Conference, I'm going to have to go with Karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, the Minnesota Timberwolves, I think they're 2-2 now. But for a guy who's a career 50% from the field scorer, I know he's a big guy, power forward center. Once played the center as well. But currently he's shooting 37% from the field off 18 attempts. So he's shooting 6 for 18 from the field. And then he's shooting 23% from three off 5 attempts, which is a pretty large amount. I mean, you would say that's more than a lot of guards take, a lot more threes than a guard would take. So Cat has to be my biggest disappointment. He's averaging 17 and around 10, and that doesn't really sound too bad. But for me, it's just the field goal percentages that kind of kill it for me. But 37% from the field, that's just not on par. You can't be doing that as a power forward center. Even as a guard, that's probably below league average. So Cat, I know he can turn it around, but he hasn't been very impressive thus far this season.
Yeah, and I think what we expect of Cat and what we know he can do when he dropped that 60-point game only a season and a bit ago, and when he's on, and he's one of the best shooters, one of the best big man shooters of all time. But the disparity between his best and his worst is just such a big gap there. And, he literally, we can question him at times about being, arguably, one of the best power forward centers in the league, and, being a top 15 player in the league. And then he goes from that to, dropping absolute stinkers, or, just looking like he's, disinterested out in the court. So I think that's the big question marks. And with all the potential and the hype that, that he came into the league with out of Kentucky, and there was all this hype about him being an amazing defender as well, hence why he ended up being drafted number 1 overall. We haven't seen any glimpses of that whatsoever, and I think, like I said, we just need to get him. We need him to get back to his best. Obviously, he's had injuries and whatnot, but for a guy with as much talent for his size that Cat possesses, he just has to be a better player, and that's the reason why the Timberwolves will either make noise in the playoffs, or they'll just be making up the numbers like they have been the last few years, or even missing out in the playoffs. So in one of the next segments, I'm going to actually pose a question to you about Karl-Anthony Towns, but we'll leave it for the next segment. But he just needs to be a more potent offensive player, and it just needs to help the Timberwolves a lot more than he is right now. So yeah, I completely agree with that one.
No, 100%. Moving on, I guess we'll do our teams now for biggest surprise, biggest disappointment. I'll kick mine off. My biggest surprise for the team has to be the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, obviously, it was no news. Harden didn't show up to training camp. There was a whole debacle. Will he stay? Will he go? Is he going to ever suit up for Philadelphia again? And we have the answer. He's a Los Angeles Clipper. But throughout all the adversity, the 76ers remained, I guess. The culture still remained. Like, they're 3-1 at the moment. They've blown teams out like Toronto. They've blown the Blazers out. They just look really, really good. And the game that they did lose was to the Milwaukee Bucks in that first game. And even in that game, I thought they looked really good. And the question marks, I guess, that I had for them before the season started, with Maxey, can he be a secondary star? Obviously, that is answered as well. He looks like for sure all-star in this league. He looks really, really good. So I think with the added depth that they did get in Robert Covington, Marcus Morris, even KJ Martin, I think they're going to be even scarier out the East. And additionally, with the 2 first-rounders that they did get, they can now make a trade for a potential other all-star if there is anybody on the market, like a guy like Zach LaVine or DeMar, if the Chicago Bulls were to part ways with one of those guys, or perhaps Trae Young, or perhaps Karl-Anthony Towns. I think Philadelphia, they can make something happen, and they certainly can be still competitive out the East and potentially make a run at the finals still, even with the loss of James Harden, and Ben Simmons.
I don't know how that pairing of Cat and Joel Embiid.
I reckon it would work, man. I reckon it would work.
Nah, but all the beef that they've had in the past, remember them fighting on the court and stuff? I don't know about that.
But like we've seen it so many times in NBA history, like Westbrook, Pat Bev, obviously, and then I don't know. We've seen it a lot. I mean, who else? Who else could we name? I guess. Try to think of other one. Lance Stevenson, LeBron. Like, there's been a lot of NBA beefs that have just been sorted out through playing together. I think they could make it work. It'll be interesting for sure. But as much as the troll Joel Embiid is, I feel like off the court, he's a great guy. Like, he's a good dude. Cat seems like a good dude. I'm sure it would be in sync. But I don't really think it's too realistic. But imagine if that was a front court duo to deal with. That would be so scary. Probably the scariest thing we've seen since AD Boogie, if they were healthy.
Yeah, that's a big question mark. It's just all about health and, the attitude that they would have towards the game. Obviously, they can all be both be a bit fiery at times on the court. So would be an interesting dynamic. But I think the most underrated signing from the Philadelphia 76ers, or one of the most underrated acquisitions, and I mentioned this, that one of these teams should definitely look at signing him in the off-season, and that was Kelly Oubre. Yeah. I did actually mention that, the Sixers could be a viable option there, and, at the end of the day, it's they got him for a bare minimum, and he's performed really, really well, and he started the season really hot. And I think he looks like his mind's in the right place. You know, he looks like he's invested into the team and invested in whatever role he needs to play. So they've been so far so good, and I guess it will be interesting to see if they can continue that trend now with the loss of James Harden, and you know, if they can add someone else in, how far they can go this season. But thus far, they've exceeded the expectations that we had of them. I mean, they do have high expectations, don't get me wrong, but in terms of without James Harden now and all the drama and noise that was surrounding that organization from the off-season into training camp into the lead up to the season, it's definitely gone well for them so far. But for my biggest surprise team, I'm going with the New Orleans Pelicans. 4-1 thus far to start the season. You know, Zion looks good when he's out there. He obviously rested this last game that they played, but they still got the W. CJ looks like he's back to his best when he was at the Portland Trail Blazers. Brandon Ingram, when he's been on the court, has looked good. Again, that's another question mark. Can all three of these guys be on the court at the same time and stay healthy? But I mentioned it earlier. You know, you got Trey Murphy to come back from injury. Herb Jones looks incredible. He's looking like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate and All NBA defensive first team kind of player. And it's a bit of a travesty he wasn't selected to an All NBA first team last year, to be honest, because he had an amazing year. And then you throw in the likes of like a Dyson Daniels, a young improving player. Jonas Valanciunas still performing, and they've got these just really good complementary pieces around him. Jordan Hawkins looks like a really, really good pickup for them in the draft, like one of the best shooters in the draft, and he looks comfortable out there. Willie Green's shown that trust in him early. So for me, if they can continue to, you know, stay healthy throughout the course of the season, and, you know, all these guys build that chemistry, get that confidence together, they can make a lot of noise in the playoffs. And I think, you know, they're one of the teams that a lot of teams will not want to face come playoff time, because they know how rampant they can be and how hot they can get at the click of a button. So, yeah, for me, they're my biggest surprise team. I didn't expect them to make so much noise this early on. But, there's still a chance for it to fall off and go completely by the wayside if one of those guys gets injured, especially a guy like Zion Williamson. But so far, they've exceeded my expectations. So for that reason, I've got them as my biggest surprise team.
Certainly, I'm praying and I'm hoping that injury with Brandon Ingram currently, I think it was like his knee or something. I think he just got a little knock. But I hope that goes all smoothly, because the last thing I would want to see is, like you mentioned, Ingram or Zion go down. But yeah, I'm a fan of the Pelicans. In that award prediction video, I did have Willie Green as my coach of the year. So I am optimistic about the Pelicans, and I really, really do hope they do make a playoff push and even go far in the playoffs. But for my biggest disappointment, we'll kick this one off now, for the teams, I have to go with the Miami Heat. Now, the Heat, although they haven't really had any tremendously bad games, I mean, they lost to the Timberwolves by 16. You could say that probably was a pretty bad game. But they are 1-3, I believe, or no, 2. I think they're 2-4.
2-4 now.
2-4 now, as they beat the Wizards today. Your Wizards, I think, which I'm not really going to take too much out of. Like, I don't really mean to give Wizards slander. I think they have a young, nice, quality team, but ultimately, I think it's they haven't gelled yet, and I don't really love the brand that they are playing today. So I'm not really going to take too much out of that in-season tournament game. But yeah, I mean, they lost to the Celtics, expected. They lost to the Bucks. I would say that's expected. But then the Nets one kind of got me. I was like, oh, maybe they aren't really as good as I may have expected. Like, for a team that goes to the finals, for a team that got Tyler Hero back, Jimmy Butler, like you mentioned, struggling. It's a little bit unacceptable. And I was really optimistic of them playing Nikola Jovic. I thought when he did play this year, he played extremely well. Like, he had a really good 20-point per game outing. Or 20-point outing, but yeah, they give him DNPs, which is kind of upsetting. And then, yeah, they lost out on Dame, but just make the most out of what you did, kind of gain this offseason with the loss of Gabe Vincent and the loss of Max Strus. Like, you got Jaime Jaquez there, you got Jovic. There's a lot there that they can kind of put to the table, but yeah, I don't know, it just hasn't really gelled yet. But if there's any team that can bounce back, it's certainly the Miami Heat, because You know, they harp on about that Heat culture. It's a real thing. There's a reason why they do go to the finals. They stick to the plan, and, you know, Pat Riley's a smart guy. Eric Spoelstra's a smart guy. Jimmy Butler's a smart guy. So, yeah, I definitely do think they'll turn it around, but thus far, they have been pretty disappointing in my eyes.
Yeah, I completely agree because they're also my biggest disappointment. Although I was considering putting the Cleveland Cavaliers in this situation because they are also 2-4. They lost to the Pacers today. And obviously, Pacers had Halliburton back today, but for a team that gave up 155 points and, you know, got absolutely spanked by the Boston Celtics, for them to come out and beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, a playoff team the previous year. And I think it's the biggest letdown for me is the team's letting down Donovan Mitchell, because right now he's playing like an absolute MVP level player, 32 points per game, 5.5 boards, 5.5 assists, shooting really efficiently, and he's putting in like outworldly performances every single night. But unfortunately, the rest of his team is sort of letting him down. But yeah, you could argue that either of those teams are the biggest disappointment. But yeah, for me, it's the Heat, just because of the fact that, you know, they were a finals team last year. They've been to the finals, you know, 2 out of the last 3 years, 2 out of the last 4 seasons, whatever it is, the bubble season plus last year. And, you know, you just expect more from them, especially with how, you know, this team has built chemistry over the years. Tyler Hero looks like a much improved player as well to start the year off. But yeah, Jimmy not playing to the levels that we know he's capable of. And, you know, with a little bit of that off-season turmoil, like you could say, with trying to get Dame and all these guys being in trade rumors, you know, Jovic, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, that might have played with their mental side of things a little bit. So maybe that's the reason why they haven't started the season all too well. But I know they can turn it around, but thus far, yeah, they haven't been the most eye-catching team to watch, and especially, and all things considered, they have been a disappointment, I should say. So yeah, for me, they're also my biggest disappointment. But don't rule out the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they don't get out of this one scot-free either.
No, for sure. I mean, it's so early on in the season with these teams, like, it does feel a little bit wrong, but sometimes, you know, when a player's not performing well or a team's not performing well, it has to be addressed, and that's why we're here to do it. We don't hate any of these teams. We don't hate any of these players. It's just like, when it's good, it's willing to talk. We have to talk about it. When it's bad, we have to do both parties, make it a bit fair. But we'll move on now to our Player of the Week. We'll kick it off with the Western Conference Player of the Week. It's hard not to give it to Luka Doncic. The guy's averaging like 34, 11, and 10 damn near. The Mavericks, I think they're like undefeated as well. So, yeah, it's just no debate for me. Got to go with Luka. He's had performances where he's had like 50 almost. I think it was 49, but a close to triple-double performance. He won them the game, hit like 3 or 4 straight threes. Like, it was crazy.
4 straight threes, and then a miraculous bank shot as well that, you know, put him ahead. And yeah, he was incredible. It was incredible to see.
Yeah, like there's no flaws to him. Obviously, people could go the route of turnovers, but when you're making that many plays and you're scoring that ball so efficiently, it's like it's accepted. Like, he's winning games off his own boot, as they like to say. But yeah, how good is Luka? We don't really love the Luka slander here on this channel. He's going to continue to do what he does. He's a 6'7" freak of nature who passes like this out of his ass and then hits shots like this. Like, he's absolutely crazy. And then when you add that to the fact he's shooting 40+% from 3, that just adds to it how good of a player he really is. And 50% from the field. Like, wonder boy. What can I even say? Like, I don't even know what else to say about him.
Luka Magic. Yeah. El Mago. But yeah, I also have him as my Western Conference Player of the Week. I think you summed it up pretty well, to be honest. Yeah, he's looking like he's super invested in the team. He's super invested on the defensive side of the ball as well. Looks much improved on that side. Obviously, we'll see how things play out as the season progresses when the fatigue starts to kick in. Is he going to be that same Luka Doncic? The one thing I'd still say, he still harps on and chirps to the refs. That last game against the Bulls, you know, he was livid. I mean, he was probably getting a little bit frustrated by the double teams and, you know, the physical defense that wasn't being called maybe that he normally gets. But I think outside of that, we know what he's capable of, and we know how incredible he is night in, night out. So I think we can excuse the fact every now and then he might have a little bit of a bust up. That's just him. He's passionate. He's of Serbian and Slovenian background. Like, I'm a Serb. I know how fiery, we can be when things don't go our way. So like I can understand it from my side of things why Luka can be the way he is. But nah, he was incredible this last week and a bit, and pretty much is the reason why the Mavs were 4-0. And even when he was getting double teamed against the Bulls in the last game, his ability to find the open man and find the guy who was hot on that night, which was at that particular point in time Grant Williams and even Derek Jones one of the other nights, just showed that he does have trust in his teammates. And it's going to be interesting to see once Kyrie's back, because Kyrie's been out for the last few games, how that whole dynamic's going to work. But so far, I mean, it's looked good without Kyrie. Maybe when Kyrie comes back, they start losing games. So was it a bad decision for them to re-sign Kyrie, and was it the right partnership and pairing with Luka? We still don't know that because we haven't seen enough games from it. We thought we'd see it at the start of this season, but clearly that hasn't come to be yet because Kyrie's been out. But we just have to wait and see. Like I said, it's still early on in the season, and like ESPN does, we don't want to be the people that start hyping up, oh, he's definitely MVP, because we have to just wait and see how things play out. The last thing you want is to have 7 different MVPs over the course of the season. Oh, it was this guy. Oh, and then Tatum. Oh, no, Tatum's fallen off. Now it's SGA. Oh, no, it's not SGA. It's Embiid.
Yeah.
It's Jokic. It's the worst thing you can do, because it's you pretty much all your credibility goes down the drain by doing that, because ultimately, you're just guessing at that point. I could also name 10 players and suddenly I'm going to be right because one of those guys is going to be an MVP. It's I called it. Well, no, you didn't, because you just rattled off 10 names.
Yeah, exactly.
I
I feel like it's got to be stages. You do start of the year, and then maybe All-Star break, middle of the year, and then you use that conclusion to the end, obviously end of season but then it's so obvious at the end of the season. So I feel like the more towards the All-Star break is really, because you get that 30 to 40 games in, the sample size is good enough, because we see it all the time in the NBA. I don't know, Brandon Jennings could average 36 points per game in the first 6 games. But obviously we know he is not going to have 36 every single game for the rest of the year. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things, happens a lot. Anybody can start off super fast. And you take it with a grain of salt. You say, oh, they look like they've improved, but there's a question mark. Can they carry that on throughout the season? Do we see them declining, diminishing? Because, happens a lot. But
that's exactly
it's like Cam
same,
Thomas.
you said
maybe Cam Thomas.
Yeah.
Realistically, Cam Thomas, not going to lie, he's probably not averaging 28 points per game. He's probably not. But could he average 22 and be most improved? He certainly could. So, the fuck?
Yeah, I think you got to take these things with a grain of salt, I guess. That's pretty much how these things go. But even with that Brandon Jennings thing you just mentioned about, the Milwaukee Bucks, how he started the year. He had that 55-point game in his 7th game. Same with Wemby. He had his 5th game where he had 38 and 10, and people are saying he's legit. He is legit. He looks legit. But I'm saying we've seen instances of this in the past where guys, they have a really big outing in their rookie season early on, and people immediately call him the next big thing or the next so-and-so, and then they never live up to it, and it's well, fuck, this guy's a bust now, blah, 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 or he's,
No, they're not a bust. Yeah, you just gave him false expectations. You put
exactly,
too
that's
much
what I meant. I didn't mean a bust, but
No, that's what I mean, but no, almost mimicking what people do say with I knew he was a bust, they call it, but then when they're succeeding overly, they're oh, he's the next MVP. That's why so many players, I guess, fail expectations, and half these guys aren't even bad. It's just the amount of pressure, expectations, fans or of specific fan bases put on players. It's just
injuries,
so unfair. But I guess it's just the name of the game, and
So we'll move on to the Eastern Conference player. So we rambled on a bit there about the MVP race, but it was a fun chat. I actually really enjoyed that. Moving on for the purposes of time, moving on to the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. I'll let you go and take this one first.
So originally when we did, plan to do this, I had Cam Thomas, but now it's probably out of 2 guys. It's out of Donovan out the East or Maxey out the East. But I feel I have to give it to, as good as Donovan's been, maybe, I don't know if you have Maxi as well, but if you do, I have to agree with you if you do have him, just because he's averaging like 50, 50, 90. Like, that doesn't happen. It's like we harp on about averaging 40, 40, 90 or 40, 50, 90. Maxi's just killing it. He's averaging like 28 points per game or 27, 5 and 6. Philadelphia playing the best basketball they have in so long, even though they've been a playoff team for multiple consecutive years. I think they're just really playing a fun brand of basketball, and Maxi's scoring efficiently. He's just not really too many flaws to his game. He doesn't really turn it over, and he's playmaking really well. He's getting to the free throw line. He's scoring from 3 really well. I just think he's killing it. So Maxi, for that reason, has to be my Eastern Conference Player of the Week.
I completely agree. Like I said, I think you could put Donovan Mitchell, and I could make the argument for him. He's basically been the reason why they've been in games a lot of the time. Like, for him to average, like I said, 31.5, 5.5, 5.5 on really efficient shooting, it's a testament to how he's obviously taken on that expectation that he put on himself last year after having those big performances and, an all-NBA caliber season last year, and almost proven that he's one of the best shooting guards in the league, if not the best. And so, for him to be able to carry that expectation, it's almost like they could be 0-6 without Donovan, realistically speaking. Because those 2 games that they did win, he's obviously playing a big part in that. But I do also have Tyrese Maxey though, and I think what it does come down to is it correlates more to the fact that they have been winning games of basketball, you could make the argument that they got Joel Embiid there and the reigning MVP and reigning scoring title winner at their disposal, but that doesn't still mean that he can do everything on his own. Like, to have Tyrese Maxey, come in and be able to put up the numbers he's putting up at the early stage and doing it super efficiently when there wasn't as much expectation on him, especially considering we didn't know what was going to happen with Harden. And that almost put more pressure on him, because when you don't know what's going to happen, what your role is going to be leading into the season, you kind of come into the season with a bit of question marks about it. But for him to come in and perform the way he has in the early stages of the season, and for them to be winning games of basketball, I think he's truly deserving. You could almost argue Jason Tatum's up there, but because they have the 4 or 3 other stars there that could also, take away the attention defensively from Jason Tatum, that's probably the reason why I didn't put him here. It's an obvious choice. So Tyrese Maxey for me is the Eastern Conference Player of the Week and a bit.
Yeah, week and a bit. Moving on, Team of the Week for the West and Eastern Conference. Now, for me, we'll kick this one off in the West. I have to go with the Dallas Mavericks being 4-0. Obviously, a while back, I made a video just talking about the Mavericks acquisitions that they did make, and I guess the gaps in which they fixed in the franchise, getting Grant Williams in, and then the ascension of Jane Hardy. I mentioned Luka, Kyrie re-signing. They brought in Derek Lively. But I really do think they have the team now to where Luka, I don't expect him to make a Western Conference Finals appearance, but I think they certainly can. Like, there's no reason why. Luka's done it before with a limited roster. He has all the pieces now to really push, but once again, I'm not putting false expectations on a guy like Luka to do so. But I just think they've been really impressive, despite not really playing anybody too impressive. 4-0, you can't really argue with that. They've beaten the Pistons, they've beaten the Spurs, who I actually really do rate the Spurs young core, and I think that will be a play into late playoff seed team. And then the Nets look like another 8th to 6th seed. And of course, we got the Grizzlies they defeated and the Bulls. So, Dallas, they haven't really all been too extremely a championship threat, but I think they've done enough to where I put them as my Western Conference Player of the Week. I don't know why I'm rambling on so much. Yeah, Team of the Week. But yeah, hopefully that came across as I mean, you could understand what
No,
I'm saying.
I understood what you said. I understood you were getting at. Yeah, they haven't beaten anyone significant at this point, but they've done obviously what they needed to. Still getting 4 wins on the board for them to. Don't worry, that's the translation for you
Bad
guys.
English, yeah. So I'll edit. I'll edit it. I'll edit it, make it a bit crisp. But yeah, I don't know.
No, you're good.
Do not know what that all was, but yeah.
So yeah, pretty much for my Western Conference team of the week, I could have gone down the path of the Mavericks as well, but I went down the path of the Nuggets only because they have beaten some more genuine kind of threats. Even though technically they've only beaten the Jazz, the Grizzlies as well, and they beat the Thunder, which I think blowing out the Thunder by 33 points, who are considered like one of the improving teams in the West, definitely, was good signs. And then obviously beating the Los Angeles Lakers in that Western Conference Finals rematch on opening night, that definitely showed that they were still a force to be reckoned with in the league. And that loss to the T-Wolves definitely posed some questions. It exposed some things about their team, but I think they are going to bounce back. Right now, they're up 11 against the Mavericks with about 2 minutes left in the second quarter. So if they can beat the Mavs, obviously, then it's a justified selection. But yeah, I think you can't go wrong with the Nuggets in this particular instance. There's still some question marks about that loss of Bruce Brown and how that's going to affect them. And can that bench step up when the starters maybe are having an off night? But yeah, so far they look pretty good, and they look like once they get to the playoffs, they'll be a pretty unstoppable force once again, like they were in the last postseason, where they obviously ended up winning the championship. So we'll see how things play out. But for my Eastern Conference team of the week, I'll start us off here. I've got the Boston Celtics. It's not much to be justified. They're 4-0. They've been blowing teams out. That starting five, Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Porzingis, and Jaylen Brown looks incredible. The dynamic that they have, even the reserves when they come on, they know what their role is. They play their role. And the thing is, they can chop and change and shift that starting lineup around, which is so great. Because then they can add guys like Derek White to the bench if they need to add a bit more scoring plug on a particular night. But in terms of guys like Peyton Pritchard stepping up, Luke Cornet, Sam Merrill, all these kind of guys. Not Sam Merrill, Sam Hauser. All these guys can definitely play their role and help this Celtics team. But right now they don't look like they're going to be stopped anytime soon. But we'll see how things play out. But yeah, right now they're my team of the week, fair and square.
Yeah, have to agree with you on that one. Not the Pacers. Obviously not the Pacers, because they lost by like 51 points to none other than the Boston Celtics. I mean, how can we not? I hate the Celtics. Like, I really, really don't like the Celtics. But when you're blowing teams out, like the Hornets by damn near 40 on... Oh, sorry, that was in the preseason. I just realised. Cut that out. But when you're blowing teams out like the Wizards by 20, you're blowing out teams like the Pacers by 50, it's hard to not put the Boston Celtics in that echelon. And I know they did have Tyrese Halliburton out in that game, but the Celtics just look really, really good. And I think it really is championship or bust. If they don't push for a championship, it's like every year for them, I guess, is championship or bust, because that's what they stand by as an organisation, and that's why they're so successful. But moving on to the next segment, this one, it's going to be a fun one. Fact or cap? I would really love to hear yours first if you'd want to, but if not, I'm happy to go first. But all right, sweet.
I'll go for it. I'll start us off. So my first question posed to you: fact or cap? The Atlanta Hawks should build around DeJounte Murray and look at trading Trae Young.
Ooh, like it. Very interesting, but to be fair, Trae Young, he arguably could have been on our biggest disappointment list. The guy just doesn't swing the damn rock. I'm not going to lie. Like, watching the preseason, Trae Young was making these passes, like quick passes, not over dribbling the clock out. Then you get to the regular season, he's a great player, but it's the same old Trae Young, just dribbling out the clock, taking bad shots, struggling shooting from the field. So I'm really not mad at you on that one, certainly. And DeJounte had that 40 piece the other day. Everybody on the Hawks is eating right now. Like Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter's eating, DeJounte's now eating, Onyeka's playing all right. And then
Bogey's playing well.
Yeah, but Trae Young, I don't know. He looks like the odd one out, and to be honest, he looks like the scapegoat at this current point in time. So definitely not mad at you on that one.
So we're saying fact for that?
I'm saying that's a fact, to be honest. But get on my ass if you're a Hawks fan in the comment section down below.
Oh, I love it. I love the smoke. I love when we ask for the smoke in the comments. It's the best.
Do you want to take turns? So it's like you go, I go?
Yeah, you go.
Okay, so my first one. The San Antonio Spurs are a playoff team. I think Victor, like what he did the other night. Right, I was watching the highlights. This guy, I don't know why I'm laughing. He's not real. Like, this guy's a 2K player. I don't understand. 7'11", shooting from three, just dribbling up the court, making plays. Like, he's absolutely insane. But not only that, I'm a massive fan of Devin Vassell. I really like how he goes about it. I could go on about the whole roster, but obviously the core, Vassell, Keldon, Wemby, and then Trey Jones as well. I think they just got a really good... Oh, and Sohan. So how could I leave Sohan out? I think the squad they got over there is really impressive. And, yeah, Pop's doing a great job as usual. I would not be surprised if they are a 6 to 8 seed. So is that fact or cap, or am I gassing up the Spurs a little bit too much?
I really want to say fact here. I really do. Because I do see the potential, and I do see how... while this roster has gelled, but I'm going to say cap for now, and I'm not going to say cap that they're going to miss out the playoffs entirely, but I reckon they're not going to be an instant playoff seed. They're going to be a play-in team at the very least, as a bare minimum, and they could sneak into the playoffs. Anytime you have Victor playing the way he did the last two nights against the Suns, I'm giving him every single chance. That, obviously, mind you, there was a bit of luck in that first game with that steal and the way they sort of came back in that game. But then the second game, it was a convincing win, especially away from home. It just showed how damaging this Spurs roster can be. And I love that Sohan took up the challenge of guarding Devin Booker on the entire night. Although Booker still did have a really good night, he frustrated Booker, and then does his typical shit when they're up. He starts talking smack back to Sohan, but he doesn't back it up because they take the L. So fuck you, Devin Booker, on that one. I'm a bit of a Devin Booker.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like the way Book goes about it. But I'm gonna say cap for now on this one. But I think there's a potential there that they could be a playoff team, especially if they continue to feed Victor the ball, and like they did when he gets into the paint, like just throw it up to him. He's gonna catch everything. He's got the reach to out.
He's not soft either. Like I thought, not gonna lie, I thought Wemby was a little bit soft, but bro, when he's pissed off, like, oh my god, you literally could put the whole team on him 5-on-1. It's like he's on a skills mini hoop. I don't know if you had one of those. You probably did. Like we all did back in the day.
Yeah.
Like
Fisher Price.
You ever 1-on-1 like your sister or like any of your friends on that, and it really did get heated. Like Wemby is playing on one of those. Like you kind of have to tick him off a bit, and then he just goes crazy.
And I love when he gets in the painted area. He's aggressive. He wants to flush on somebody. He's not afraid, especially when he gets like on a reverse.
Yeah, but he warms up to it. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. And like he's built for those big moments. We saw in the clutch. He obviously in the fourth quarter he seems to score a lot of his points against the Mavericks in his debut yesterday against the Suns. So I think with him, if he plays the way he did the last two games, night in, night out, I give the Spurs every chance to make the playoffs. But right now I'm going to say cap, but it's not like major cap. It's slight cap.
Yeah. Nah, I feel you.
It's a weak cap. Weak cappuccino.
Yeah.
A weak cap.
Nah, I feel you.
Second question that I've got posed to you is the Memphis Grizzlies should tank regardless of Ja's return and try and secure a high pick in the draft.
That's a fact. You know what? That's a fact because we talked about this briefly before, but Jars out 25. Like, they look like the worst team. I might be blowing up a bit, but the worst team since the Charlotte Bobcats. Like, they look that bad. Like, they look really, really bad. So, in my eyes, if you got a guy like, obviously, Buzelis and Holland I mentioned before, but to me, the main one, you get a guy like the NBL's own Alex Sarr, pair him next to Jaren Jackson Jr. as a front court duo, two guys who can stretch the floor, block shots, post up with Ja Morant, and then Desmond Bain. I feel like it really is worth it if they want to push for a potential title in the future to get that additional piece, because obviously it's hard to attract guys to Memphis, and maybe they thought a guy like Zaire Williams could be that guy, but I would probably take the risk and secure a top 10 to 5 pick. I would say fact on that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. They're down by a point to the Blazers just at the start of actually, they just scored a bucket. They're up by a point against the Blazers early in the third quarter. But I'm just looking through their roster, and I know Jar's out, and obviously they've got missing Brandon Clark, Steven Adams.
Yeah, I forget about Clark
guys
as
of that
well.
nature.
He's really good.
Yeah, but look at this roster, though. They've got Jaren, Desmond, Marcus Smart. Obviously, you have D-Rose, but then the names after this are just like, ugh. You really wonder, are they going to win a lot of games this year? David Roddy, Zaire Williams, Xavier Tillman, who can hold his own, John Conchar, Luke Kennard, Vince Williams Jr., Jacob Gilead, Kenny Lofton Jr. Like,
you lost me on Vince. You lost me on Vince Williams. I know Kenny Lofton, but come on, Vince Williams, bro. Like,
who
is Vince?
Who?
Yeah, I don't mean to be disrespectful to Memphis fans, but like, I'm sure I could go to the G League draft and pick out a couple players. And nah, we won't get into that because I'm not a GM here. But like, Vince, bro, who the heck is that? No, but anyway, I get what you mean. Their upside's really
that's what I mean.
Good,
like,
but then we're not going to get into that because I've just triggered every single person in the city of Memphis right now.
This isn't the triggering NBA fan bases video, Marcus.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I think there's no better time to do it than when all these guys are out injured with Jar's suspension. I think it's the perfect time to do it. So I would say fact on that as well.
Yeah.
You're up, buddy.
All right, bro. No, for my next one, Shane Sharp should be the clear-cut number one option in the city of Portland for the Blazers. I feel like, look, as much as we harp on, people are saying Scoot's a generational talent. I like Simons, but to me, he's a secondary guy. He's like a CJ. And then Aiden as well. Love Aiden. Dominating. But Sharp's just the best scorer. He has the most upside on that team, in my eyes. He's a 6'7" wing. He can fit the mold of like what a Zach LaVine to me is, or an Anthony Edwards. He scores from all three levels, rebounds better than a guy like Simons, and to me he could be just as good of a playmaker as a guy like Simons. So I would go on the route of giving Shane the keys. He's averaging 20 a game, close to 6 rebounds, around 3 assists and a steal and a block. Not the game today, but the game prior, he had 29, 7, and 5. He is really good. He's really gifted. He did start off the bench, I think, at the start of the year, but with Simons going down now, obviously he's going to be playing 40-plus minutes a night. He's really gifted, and if that guy was to play in college, I genuinely think he would have been a top 3 pick, to be honest. So is that fact or cap? Should he be the number one, clear-cut number one option on that team?
I say fact because with Anthony Simons, I feel like, he's a great shot creator off the dribble. He's a potent scorer, but I feel like outside of that, he doesn't rebound the ball at a high rate. He doesn't play make to the level that, we'd expect of a guy of Anthony Simons' skill set. And just defensively, I don't know. I'm not still sold on him being a great defender either. But with Shaden Sharp, he's bouncy. He's got a quick first step. He can shoot the 3 ball. His willingness to attack the rim is second to none. He's got a decent mid-range game. I think that's still a little bit of a work in progress, but I think he can definitely, if he can improve on that and those, that mid-level zone, he's going to be even more potent. But what did I say the other day? I've completely gone blank. I said he reminds me of a Zach LaVine, and there was another player that I said he's a hybrid of. Do you remember?
I said Anthony Edwards. I'm pretty sure you said Zach.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
those
Zach
two are
LaVine,
the
Anthony
main
Edwards.
ones,
It was both 6'6" guards, both with tremendous athleticism.
I mean, we could say Jordan and Kobe, but not jokes.
Let's pump the brakes a little bit, but those guys, Zach LaVine and Anthony Edwards, I think have really, really closely resembled to a guy like Shaedon Sharpe in the sense that they got outwardly athleticism. They can both shoot the three ball quite well. Ant, a more improved 3-point shooter. Zach came into the league with a bit more of a heater, a bit more of a flamethrower in that sense, but. Yeah, I think he's definitely got that potential to live up to those kind of guys and, reach that kind of an ascension in terms of being an all-star caliber player, an all-NBA level player. So I definitely agree with it, and I definitely think it's fact, and I think, Portland would be silly not to build around him. I mean, Scoot, it's still early stages. We'll have to wait and see how he plays out, but I don't think Simons is the man. I think it either has to be Shaedon Sharpe or Scoot down the track, and I think you could try and extract the maximum amount of value out of a guy like Anthony Simons in a trade package and see what else you can do, whether it's picks or whether it's another player of a similar nature or, maybe an upgrade on Simons possibly, more suited to what the Blazers actually need. So we'll see how things play out, but I completely agree and I completely think that's fact. So the next one, we got how many do we have left each? We have 3 left each after this one, 2 after this one actually. So my third question posed to you is, Austin Reeves is a one-year wonder and teams have scouted him and worked him out in terms of how to defend him.
Nah.
Fact or cap?
Cap. Austin Reeves, I feel like the expectations we put on him, I mean, I guess people blow it up as if Austin Reeves to me was never going to be an all-star level guy or the next third star for the Lakers. To me, he's just a microwave scorer who just he's a sneaky athlete. I don't have any expectations for Austin. I think he played a really good game, I thought, last game. But yeah, to me, he's just a 10 double figures points per game scorer who can, on the off night, get you 6 to 7 rebounds and shoot the ball well and play make. But I don't think people should expect Austin to be a star of this league. To me, he's a star in his role type player. So I'm going to have to say cap for that one. But I'm keen to hear what you think of Austin. Because obviously I might be biased as a Lakers fan, but yeah.
Look, I don't think he's necessarily a one-year wonder in the sense that he's not going to be a serviceable player in the league.
Yeah.
But I think the way people were hyping him up, people were, putting all these expectations on him, or he's the third star next to LeBron and AD.
Never was, to be honest.
No, but
yeah, people
I'm saying
did
NBA
say
fandom,
yeah.
and people are putting that kind of expectation, and people are putting that kind of label on him. And so, when you are getting labeled like that, and when people are putting a specific level of pressure on you, and you need to live up to that or whatever, you don't even have to live up to it, but you'd expect that if people are not just fans, but people in the media saying hyping Austin Reeves up to be this player, and then him playing for Team USA, that's also another expectation. It's well, if he's played on the USA team, then he has to be performing a lot greater than he is. And he's only averaging 11 points, 4.5 boards, 3.4 assists on 34% from the field, 21% from 3. I think he's a great role player, and I think he's going to be in the league for a very long time, but he's never going to be more than just a guy off the bench, in my opinion. And I think the fact that Lakers see him as this third star because of what he did in one playoff run, I think it's the wrong kind of mindset. So I don't reckon it's fact in the terms of the one-year wonder thing, but I think it's kind of fact in the sense that he might be a one-year wonder in terms of being a true star level player or have that star level production in a specific series. You know what I mean? That basically is how they viewed him. So
yeah. No,
I don't necessarily.
I understand.
I don't necessarily think. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think it's necessarily like he's not going to be in the league after this year or whatever, but it's just more so like, yeah, them thinking he's like the third option next to those guys. Like, it just doesn't seem right. I think you're not going to ever win a championship with Austin Reeves as your third option, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
that's just me. But yeah, he still has time to turn it around, and who knows, we might see a different version of Austin Reeves come the middle part of the year and whatever. But right now, I don't think he's living up to the label that they've put on him. So for that reason, that's the reason why I posed the question. The reason why I'm going to say it's fact for that sense, but not fact entirely in the sense that he will only be in the league for a short period of time. I think he's going to be a player in this league for a very, very long time, especially because he plays basketball the right way. Yep, you're up next.
Yeah, very quickly, another point. This is why, because I've been a Lakers fan my whole life, but the casual fandom, when, things like this just get hyped up to the point of, unrealistic expectations like we were talking about before, it ruins it for me because, yeah, Austin, I love Austin. I love watching him play, but I don't expect anything of this guy than what he brings. And, yeah, the fact that people actually did kind of label, now thinking about it as the Lakers' third star, it's just wild to me. But moving on, the Philadelphia 76ers, even with the loss of James Harden, with the ascension of Tyrese Maxey and what they got back in bench depth and those 2 second-round picks, they could make a move with those picks, and I think they could get another third star. And with that added depth chart in Rocco, Marcus Morris, KJ Martin, I think they could still be in the hunt for a championship. I'm not going to say they're going to be favourites out the East because they're obviously still not, but they are certainly still in the hunt, I think. Is that fact or cap?
I'm going to say fact, and only because I think that dynamic between Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey works a lot better than the dynamic of Joel Embiid and James Harden, because Joel Embiid and James Harden both like to play at a slower tempo. At times, James Harden likes to push the break, don't get me wrong, but I feel like a lot of the times he prefers to be in a half-court set in an isolation situation. So the guy like Maxey, who does like to get out in the break, push the rock, go coast to coast, but he can also score from, the three, mid-range, get that floater. He's not afraid of contact. I think he can do a lot of great things on the court. So I think they work hand in hand a lot better than James Harden and Joel Embiid. And then you throw in a third star that can complement them. It doesn't necessarily need to be three of the same kind of player. You know what I mean? Because you have Joel Embiid who can score at will from, he can stretch out the floor, really make it hard for the defense to sort of game plan for the Philadelphia 76ers, especially when you throw in, like I said, Maxey into the mix. And then, like I said, all you need is a similar caliber player to a guy like Drew Holiday, in my opinion. You need a guy that can get his own on any given night when his number's called, like he did last year where he dropped that 51-point game. And we're like, oh, really? Did Drew Holiday have this in him? He's always had that in him. But I think he's very willing to sacrifice and, play to the level that, that team is asking of him and, whatever role they need him. So I think they need a third star that's in a similar mold to a Drew Holiday, who can still score the ball, can defend at a really high rate, but be a complementary third star to a guy like Maxey and Embiid to be able to say, well, now we've got the perfect team built, that there's no egos, not everyone needs the rock in their hand, everyone's willing to play their role, and then that can definitely push them up into, championship contention. Not that they aren't already, but I think they can definitely go up and start competing with the likes of the Boston Celtics and even, the Milwaukee Bucks once they start getting their chemistry up to the levels that, we expect them to be come the pointy end of the season. So for me, I think it's fact, but I think it's the third star that they do go after has to be the right third star. It can't just be putting another superstar next to those guys, and then it's going to be an ego clash. And,
Yeah.
it's going to go
Can't
all
be
pear-shaped. So I think it has
Trae Young, because I know they would think in that realm, because obviously if we're looking at stars who are available, you probably think of Trae or you probably think of LaVine. But I totally agree. It has to be somebody who complements Maxey and Embiid really well. And maybe Trae could in the pick and roll with Embiid, but that's really is boom or bust.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to the fourth question that I've got posed to you, fact or cap. The Timberwolves should look to explore for trade options for Karl-Anthony Towns. We obviously discussed it earlier, saying he hasn't lived up to the expectations of him being that second star alongside a guy like Anthony Edwards. And obviously we know how that dynamics work between him and Rudy Gobert this past year. Obviously both were interior presences. Cat can go out to the 3-point line and obviously make shots from out there, but Gobert sort of clogging that lane up maybe took away from what Karl-Anthony Towns could do. And I think maybe that was the acquisition that really hurt Cat's production. But then in saying that, I think he's the odd one out, because I would rather have a guy like Gobert who could still, be a defensive anchor and, give you a rim runner and a guy that can, get offensive rebounds and extra possessions, than a guy like Cat who, is not willing to do that, and he's more of a perimeter-oriented kind of player. So should they look to explore for trade options, fact or cap, for Karl-Anthony Towns?
I'd say fact, especially keyword explore. If the deal's right, and say the Knicks have been waiting on a guy like Cat for a while now. I know they got Brunson, they got their guy, they got Randall through that trade, but Cat's a legitimate former, I guess. Maybe he's still a star, but I guess former, you could say superstar. And there's no reason why he can't go back to that form. And the Knicks, if they were to make a deal like that, have so many assets. Even if they didn't want to give up RJ Barrett, I think they got enough picks to where they could do that. They got guys like Sims, Mitchell Robertson, Emmanuel Quickley, McBride, Quentin Grimes. They have so many pieces. Even a guy like DiVincenzo. So Minnesota benefit off that because they get depth and they get more starters. They get a probably quality point guard like Quickley to pair up with Anthony Edwards. I would definitely do that if I was the New York Knicks, because you get picks and then additionally you get some really good young pieces, which you could argue is almost more valuable than holding Cat hostage with Gobert. So not only do they benefit with a depth chart to me, but long-term they benefit because they get building blocks and then they get additional picks. I would say that's a massive win if that was to happen. But other teams, I couldn't really think of another team. Obviously, Cat's a really good piece, but don't really know, what other team would...
The Warriors.
The Golden State Warriors. I mean, that would be crazy. Do a Wiggins and Cat deal, or they team up again. That would be pretty cool. But, yeah... I guess he would fit in Golden State. It's just very... I mean, what would it be Draymond and Moody? That actually could work, because they got Moody there, they got Kuminga there, they got Draymond there. That would be so sick, I reckon, to see Cat just jacking up threes, and then Kuminga can finally have, I guess, the spotlight. Moody, he's really good. He's always been really good. So playing time is all he needs, and then with Anthony Edwards as a spot-up shooter, bro, that would actually be so cool. I think Minnesota would go out winners if they were to somehow get those two for Cat. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm gonna say fact.
Like I said,
facts.
I'm gonna say that was a bit of a long shot, and I don't know if the Warriors would pull the trigger on that, because I think they still rate those young guys highly, and obviously Draymond's still that glue guy that they expect him to be. But never say never on anything in the NBA, because we thought a lot of these trades would never go through, and surprisingly they did. And we never thought Dame would be a Milwaukee Buck, but here we are now today, as the season progresses, and he's teamed up with Giannis. So these things can never be ruled out. But I'll let you round out your second last question, and then I'll move on to my last one after that.
So, no, this is my last one. This one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this one's my...
Wait, do we have 4 only?
No. So I had the Spurs one. I had Shannon Sharp. I had Philadelphia. Oh, yeah. Sorry, you're right. Yeah. This is my... Sorry about that. Okay, so my second last one, Scotty Barnes is officially... I'm blowing this up a lot because that's what, to me, Toronto fans love to do. But Scotty Barnes is officially the next Kevin Durant, LeBron James archetype. But he's, to be, in all seriousness, he looks really, really good. And people kind of expected this breakout last year. But third year, the dude is just absolutely dominating. 21, 10, and 6, 2 blocks. They made the right choice, I guess, with getting rid of Freddie. And he's also shooting really well from beyond the arc at 40%. So, fact or cap, Scotty Barnes is the next generational wing or small forward?
I'm gonna say fact on this one.
Bold.
I really
Yeah.
It's a bold statement saying fact, but I really rated him highly last year. My most improved going into last season was actually going to be Scotty Barnes. I expected him to have this massive jump. He worked a lot with Rico Hines, who obviously does those runs in the summer. And he's working really closely with him in that sense. And I just expected, I saw that his three ball looked a lot smoother. His jump shot looked a lot smoother going into the second year. But, I think with that uncertainty of his role last year, and I think, not being really sure of where he fitted into that roster with Pascal and, Freddie and all this, it maybe stunted his growth a little bit. But I think with the new coach, Darko Rajakovic, coming in and, Pascal's kind of taken almost a back seat to Scotty Barnes this year. And, he's been given a license. He's been given the keys specifically to, run that offense. And, he's also, I think the underrated statistic that you actually didn't mention here was that he's actually averaging 2 blocks per game as well. So the fact that he's, doing it on both sides of the ball, and he's been a complete offensive player as well in terms of rebounding, facilitating, and also shot creation. And the 3 ball looks much improved. I think it's well and truly fact. Obviously, he has to try and sustain it throughout the season, but there's no reason if he doesn't keep this up, he'll be an all-star. And, possibly, depending on where the Raptors finish, he could end up being an all-NBA caliber player by the end of the year. That's obviously an overreaction and a bit of a bold take. We did our bold take videos recently, but I think it is a bit of a hot take for me to say that. But there's no reason with the keys to the offense and the keys to the franchise being handed to Scotty Barnes that he can't continue to grow and develop, and they can't continue to achieve good things, especially if they can start to make some moves, possibly try and trade for Pascal Siakam and see what they can extract while Pascal's value is still high. And use this year as more of a rebuild year and as a learning year for a guy like Darko Rajakovic in his first year as the coach to obviously see what they can do and where they can go. But Scotty Barnes looks every bit of the player that the Raptors expected him to be, and the reason why they picked him so highly at number 4 in the draft a couple of years back.
Yeah, 100%. Scotty, proving me wrong. Nah, he's an absolute beast though. Like, he's insane.
Yeah, he is. He looks, and he just he's got that dog in him. I remember at Montverde, he used to always when he used to dunk on people, he just he had that fire in him. And
he had the dreads out as well. Like, he was just a scary man, to be honest.
Yeah. He's a freakish talent, and I really like the way he's come about. But my last question posed to you is about the Phoenix Suns, and it's about, obviously, their dynamic, and it hasn't sort of worked out in the early season thus far, especially dropping those last 2 games to the Spurs. But Bradley Beal being sidelined should be signs of concern for the Phoenix Suns going forward. Fact or cap?
Bradley Beal, okay, so Bradley Beal slowing down. I mean...
No, Bradley Beal being sidelined.
In terms of being his body slowing down, deteriorating.
Yeah.
I would say fact. It is a bit worrying. Bradley Beal's... How old would Bradley Beal be now? Probably 33. I would say...
No, he's 30.
He's 30?
He's 30. Yeah, he's born in 93, I think, or 92. So he's either 30 or 31.
Not as old as I thought. But I would probably say it's pretty worrying, just because it's I don't know, you gave up a lot to kind of get Beal in, and then obviously with the loss of Aiden, it kind of makes it KD book. I would say, no, it is extremely worrying, because I mentioned before in a previous video, I think the hot take video, I think I said their depth chart is probably the worst in the league, and I'll stand by that, especially if Bradley Beal's not playing. That is some team. Obviously KD book, they're going to have enough to be a playoff team and probably a good seed, but come playoff time, they need help, and Bradley Beal's going to have to be there. So if his body's deteriorating, it's going to be really difficult for the Phoenix Suns to reach where they want to reach, which is ultimately to win the NBA championship. But I don't know. It's a tough one, but you got to kind of get to give in a trade. It's never going to be full 50-50. So they did the right thing by the organization by bringing Brad. I don't think that they should, kind of regret it, because in this league to be champions, you got to sacrifice, and that's what they did. They did what's best for the organisation. Sometimes, unfortunately, it just doesn't always pay off, and we've seen this story before with, for example, Dwight Howard at the Lakers the first time, but it's just an unlucky league. But I hope him the best, and I'm hopeful that Phoenix can, get KD and book another ring. But yeah, it is what it is. So I'm gonna have to say fact on that.
Yeah, completely right. I think we did the right thing as a Wizards organization, getting rid of him. Probably knew that he was his best was well past him, especially with the fact that he's been injured over the course of his career, and he's just purely a scorer more than a complete basketball player. Like, that's probably taken away a little bit from him. He can still play make, and I think he's better in other facets than people give him credit for. But I think, with the Suns having to then lean on guys like Eric Gordon, who's still a great player in this league, he looks really rejuvenated. But then, you have to then lean on guys like Okogie, Watanabe, guys of this nature who aren't really necessarily guys you like to lean on in situations like that. So when you don't have a guy like Bradley Beal, when the other two guys aren't maybe having the best night in KD and Book, that can then obviously cause concerns for you, and that's what it's obviously done the last few games. I mean, it might be an overreaction, those two losses to the Spurs, but it's never a good sign when teams you're supposed to beat, even with a guy like Wemby on the other side who's playing outworldly, you should still be beating the Spurs with the talent that you do have. So for me, it is worrying, but we'll just have to see how things play out, and hopefully he can get back on the court and start to show what he's truly capable of. But otherwise, it might look like a bit of a bad decision by the Suns to bring him in. But let's just see how things play out.
Yeah, live and hope. But for my last one, now originally I blew this one up, but I can't say it because it's too much. I was going to say Azar Thompson will be the rookie of the year or the best rookie in this class, but obviously like Wemby, he's insane. So I'm going to change it to Azar Thompson will be the best player out of the young crop in Detroit, out of Cade, Durant, out of all of them. I think Azar will be the best just because all he really has to do is shoot above league average from three, and he's literally got everything else down pat. Like, he can play make. He averages 10 plus rebounds. He's a really good rebounder. He's a shot blocker. He's been a proven scorer thus far, even without the three. So if he gets that down packed, he's going to be one of the best wings in the NBA, and he'll be the leader of this Pistons young team for the future. Fact or cap?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say cap. Yeah. I'm gonna say cap just because I still think Cade, from what he's shown, is still the number one guy, and he was injured. Obviously, that was a big reason why we didn't see the true side of Cade. But I'm just looking at, he's shooting 37% from the field, averaging 11 points. I mean, I think that's one area, especially with the NBA being so heavily dominated on efficiency now, and having guys that can shoot the three ball. If he doesn't improve that, then doesn't look good for him. But I think everything else, like you said, it's just really, really solid numbers so far from Azar Thompson on the defensive side of the ball, rebounding, playmaking. He's got everything else, like you said. And I don't necessarily disagree with it. I don't think it's a terrible take, and I don't think it's a terrible question to be posed, because I think it's a lot closer than people may think. But a guy like Cade, he's averaging 22.7 points per game, 7.5 assists, 3 boards. I think the only area is his shot selection at times. I did harp on this in the breakout players video that I did. He doesn't shoot very efficiently. Like, he's shooting 41.5% from 3, which is really good, because his career percentage from 3 was like 30% leading into this season. So the fact that he's 11% higher for this season to start than he is on his career is definitely promising signs. But the area that I'm worried about is the field goal percentage. So his field goal percentage is actually lower than his 3-point percentage. He's shooting 40.7% from the field, which, again, for a high volume shooting guard, high volume shooting point guard, that's just probably not the best kind of numbers. But I think that's what we're sort of used to now in this current generation, where guys will shoot a lot of shots, shoot a lower efficiency, but still get their points. And I don't know, like, I kind of, I think, yeah, like I said, I reckon it's a lot closer than I'm making it out to be, and it's only Azar's first year. But if he can at least get to about a 45% shooter from the or 43% from the field, and shoot about 35% from three over the course of his career, what he brings on the court outside of the shooting side of it, it's definitely a scary sight for a lot of teams to come. And whether he takes over as the number one guy on this team or whether Cade still is the number one guy, I think he probably proves to be more valuable than Cade if he can improve his shooting levels. So I think that's probably all I've got to say in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot closer than it's made out to be.
Yeah. Damn. But is that everything wrapped up?
Yeah, it is. Episode 1 of Beyond the Box Score, all done and dusted, all in the books. Yeah, all in the history books now. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a first episode, guys. So obviously there's going to be a little bit of the flow and the way we sort of get into each segment might not have been perfect this first episode, but I think for the first go around, I'm really happy with how things turned out, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. There's a lot of new, exciting segments that are obviously going to be of major talking points going forward as well. And there's obviously going to be different talking points week in, week out. But if you have any ideas for what we should implement in this show, let us know. And if you also want to ask us any questions that you want to include in the fact or cap segment in the comments, feel free to put those in there and we'll consider them, and obviously we'll answer those questions. So a bit of a Q&A sort of thing. So yeah, any interaction is good interaction from you guys, and obviously we really value you guys watching us on, not just on this show, but on a week-to-week basis on any of the videos we do put out. So your support is truly appreciated. But yeah, let us know what you guys thought of the episode, what we could change, what you would like for us to keep for the second week around. But yeah, really happy with how things turned out, and I can't believe we've been speaking for an hour and 26 minutes. But for now, that's all we have time for. This is your boy Danko from the Bench Mob.
It's been Marcus from the Bench Mob. Appreciate having you guys on the channel today. It's been really fun. Make sure like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Everything Danko said wrapped it up perfectly. So I'm keen to hit the hay pretty soon, and I don't even know. It's midday here, but they're not gonna lie. That was really fun, but a lot of energy taken out.
100%. But no, it's been really good fun, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video, and we'll see you guys in the next episode of Beyond the Box Score. Stay safe, guys. Peace out.
Yeah, baby.
Hello, yes, you at home. This is Commissioner of the NBA speaking to you, Adam Silver. Here's a message in courtesy of Bench Mob in collaboration with the NBA Store. When Bench Mob hits 1,000 subscribers, they'll be giving away a free NBA jersey to a lucky subscriber. So just do all the things listed on the screen.